Welcome, Jason, to our Leaders Who Care series. Great to see you, man.
Hey, Mark, good seeing you again.
Thanks. I know you just came back from New York, so you're energetic as ever. So the best thing and best way to start is always, if you could briefly introduce yourself, not the business side, but just a little bit about where you're from originally, now, family, things like that, that'd be fantastic.
Just came back from New York City yesterday, so celebrated my young daughter's birthday. She's turning 24. And she just moved to New York City last week, so you can still smell the fresh paint. They moved into a new apartment, and then my older daughter has been there for a couple of years already. So both my daughters are New Yorkers, both in tech, and it was so much fun. I was there for a conference, for investor conference, and it's just a joy, man, just a joy. So um myself, I'm originally from Hong Kong, but I've been in the US for 50 years, even though my favorite bad joke is that I look like I just graduated high school, but my kids are Gen Z working adults, and been in the Bay Area for 50 years. So since my Berkeley engineering degree, I've been in tech for a long time. I've been in comms and networking for decades. So kind of engineering to US sales and marketing to international sales and marketing, general management, and to entrepreneurship. Sat on both sides of the table, had my successes, had my lessons learned. The most important part is to really learn from lessons, right? From
Yep.
from and all that.
So I have
And
a
then,
question. I'm going to interrupt you. So, because we're going to get to that. So from lessons learned, what were you like as a kid or a teenager before 16? And the reason I picked that age for a reason is, were you a reader? Were you an entrepreneur? Did you play video games, sports? What were you like?
interesting. I immigrated to the US at age 11 from Hong Kong. I actually spent a bit more time in the South Pacific, back in a little island country called Nauru. 69, 68 used to be an Australian colony. My younger brother is actually born there with Australian citizenship. So ages 1 to 4, 6 to 9, I was in Nauru, and then filler time, 5 years I was in Hong Kong. I'm fluent in Cantonese. I think I grew up a bit of a loner. My dad, he retired. He passed at age 96 3 years ago as a blue-collar worker, custodian, the janitor kind, not the financial kind. My mom retired as a seamstress. So my parents are kind of humble, retired blue-collar workers. I love blue-collar workers. I revere them, right? Give them extra tips. It's very important. By the way, guys, give them extra tips, okay? They really appreciate you.
Yeah.
So my dad had no education. His parents died when he was real young. And back in World War II, it's very interesting. He never experienced World War II directly. He was a kid back then, like a young teenager or something like that. And because his village was so poor, he never experienced the Japanese directly. While my mom was younger than him, running for their life sometimes, a bomb dropping. You can run. My mom came from a more of a wealthy family. And my dad had no education. I love the guy to death. I love him to death. I never think bad about my parents. Now, intellectually, I really did not pick up anything from my dad. He did provide good food and all that, but I never learned anything intellectual from him. And my mom was a bit of a tiger mom, even though she didn't finish her middle school until her early 20s because of a cultural revolution or something like that. And but I grew up a bit of a loner, and even through my high school years and through college and through my part of my 20s, even though with friends, I still feel a bit of a loner. But the lesson here is that anyone can transform, anyone can learn. And when people meet me today, is that Jason, you're like a kind of a energetic, so social, blah blah blah. But I learned to be extroverted, right?
Right.
Actually, every night before bedtime, when my early bird wife is still around, awake, I'm a night person. I give her a death stare, dirty look. It's like, honey, you're intruding on my quiet, introverted couple of hours. And that's cave time. I need my caveman time, man. So
Yeah. No, it's important. So the reason I said up to 16, I noticed at 16 you started working at Tiffany's while you were in school. So what was that like for an
oh,
intro?
that was so much fun, man. That was so much fun. I was between my junior to high school summer, and I somehow learned about. I went to the College Career Center at Lowell High School, which used to be the most revered large public urban high school through California, before the stupid progressive politician tried to kind of make it a little bit too equitable, right? But it's a family jewel. So, and Lowell High School was fantastic. It's the biggest feeder school to Berkeley, UC Berkeley. I also went to UC Berkeley, to UC Davis as well. And lo and behold, I found out about this group called Enterprise for High School Students. And it's a beautiful, beautiful nonprofit. I went there, I interviewed, and I got hired by the general manager or branch manager at Tiffany's, which used to be on Grand Avenue by Sutter in downtown San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always the youngest kid there. I was a stock clerk and a shipping clerk. I worked full time every summer, every Christmas, except for one Christmas, 5 years straight, man. Ages 16 to 20, even through my entire 4 years in Berkeley, during summers, I worked there, even though I was majoring in engineering, industrial engineering and operations research. But it is what it is. Life was so much simpler back then. And I learned so much about the Tiffany politics, all the adults, and then, like so much about the 4 C's of diamonds and crystals and fine china, fine silver. And I was a meticulous stock clerk. I wrapped the ribbon so perfectly that the branch manager asked me as a kid to wrap the ribbon so that they could photo shoot that, right? And it was a blast. It was such a blast. I learned so much, and I was like innocent, and so much memory there.
Yeah, and that's where you get, like you said, you learn your lessons from different places, and they ground you at the same time for the future. And even though introvert, you probably learned even there how to be more extrovert and get along, I would think. So that's a great example. We founded our firm, Fifth Element, on the basis that leaders of any type of organization will always do better when they're doing good. And it doesn't mean just giving charity, it means really doing good. And you have an interesting journey in that regard. Can you describe, first of all, how did you develop your skills and experiences to not only secure, but achieve so well you had global management positions in the cellular communications sector,
Right.
And so on. How did you get to that point?
I think for the first couple of decades, it was just a natural career progression. So I was in comms and networking, mobile cellular infrastructure, digital microwave systems, low density, cellular infrastructure and network systems, right? Like the base stations, the switches of the network, and then the antennas and the network management systems. And then before that was like T1 networking, and then moved into global internet services. My last job working for corporations of that type was being managing director of Asia Pacific. So from engineering to North American to international, ended up doing a bunch of roles in different companies. We all went IPO, got acquired, or went all public already, all are leaders, right? If not the number one leader or a leader in those particular categories within comms and networking. And then iPass, I worked there. So for the early phases in the first couple of years, I brought in the majority revenue for the company from Asia Pacific. So got to know the Greater China, Indian subcontinent, especially Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea, Australasia sector of business cultures extremely well. A lot of people don't know that even within mainland China, there's a spectrum of subcultures, right? The cities got different cultures. India is even more diverse, believe it, in terms of dozens of languages, hundreds of dialects here, subcultures and all that. So you have to really get to know people, and I'm pretty good with people, right? Sometimes I pretty much out relationship sell my competition, and it's all perception because business is people. Whether it's a $100,000 contract, a $10 million contract, $10 billion contract, business is people. Of course, justified with logic. The more complex a project is, then you have to go through processes, right? To apply and to do DD and prepare and system engineer and all that. So I learned quite a bit and went entrepreneurial. And I even founded a couple of Chinese tech companies. I would never, ever do that anymore because of the political environment today. Was very grateful to have exited from one, sold my Series A and founder shares to a Series D investor, e-commerce and mobile commerce. And I said, I don't want to compete against Jack Ma of Alibaba back then. And overall, it morphed into Ant Financial, right? But I'm glad I made that decision because in the past I made mistakes. And, you learn from all sorts of lessons, right? I travel over 2 million miles, somewhere above 2, maybe way above 2, seen the world quite a bit of Europe as well, Middle East. And I have not been to the African continent, but the African Union, AU, entered a G20 for the first time last year. I'm part of that. I'm part of the G20, one of the few Americans who are
I
a
know.
B
Yeah.
member, which is the G20's Global Business Advisory Council. So today, fast forward to today, in between, I also got deep into education. 2005, I thought, the education industry was already a $5 trillion industry. It's like, but the multiple compared to so many tech sectors is so low, so it's got a lot of room for growth, right? So I actually went back to China because back then, the Chinese were having too much fun with entrepreneurship. I co-founded, I found a partner I liked. I restarted his company and I was a CEO. Of course, it became an island holding company, right? And then it was an education tech, it was an ed tech, education tech SaaS company on remembering vocabularies. And we apply some Eastern European professors' concept, mapped it over to the software, kind of optimize the repetition, because repetition is the mother of learning, right?
Yeah.
That's great for, especially where you have to rote memorize a whole bunch of vocab. Why don't we help you ethically cheat a bit your brain? Do you memorize, implant it in your brain sooner than just doing flashcards, right? That was great. And that emerged a US company, and that became the my previous company, education company. And I brought in a bunch of Stanford professors, a former Stanford provost, a UC Berkeley professor, even brought in Eric Yuan, who is the founder of Zoom.
I saw that. So this, you're talking about Ivy Max, right?
IBMX way back. I left them about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I have no idea how they're doing. But back then, we used to like mentor and coach up close to over 1,000 families, mostly affluent families, right? And lots of Asian Americans, Chinese Americans, and got them into all the top schools you could imagine, all the top 100, top 50, right? All the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Dartmouth, Penn, Cornell, Brown, and Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, UCLA. UVA, all the research universities, all the top liberal arts colleges here. I know that process so cold is scary, right? So I became incredibly expert in college consulting. In fact, I wrote a book called Young Leaders 3.0. You know that. Wrote for Forbes. A lot of my Forbes articles about getting to Stanford, Berkeley, when I say Harvard, apply early decision, early action, entrepreneurship, leadership. A lot of them went viral. I probably taught all my competitors, right, out there. And I gave a lot of speeches and all that to me. But today, just grooming the next generation, man, maybe that's a core reason we're talking, is very near and dear to me. I got 2 kids, and I have a small army of former students out there. And I believe that, and in fact, I'm going to give a talk this Wednesday at TIE, which is the largest entrepreneurship association in the world. They have a TIE youth department. They're going to hold their annual conference in Silicon Valley. And then they wanted me to give the parent workshop about preparing your kids for high school, college admissions or elite college admissions, university life, early career, personal success with well-being, which is a talk I gave to Harvard Business School Association, along with Harvard, Wharton, Stanford GSB, Berkeley Haas Alumni Associations. But I'm going to give an updated talk. So I'm going to mesmerize and enlighten and inspire the parents.
Oh, I know you will for sure. So the thing I find fascinating about, as I've got to know you since we first met, you leaders who seriously care about others.
Yeah.
Usually, if you're interested in other people more than being about yourself, if you really care about others, whether it's employees, whether it's players on a sports team with you, whether it's medical professionals, whatever it is, and now like you're doing students, you're impacting beyond just those people. You're impacting their family. You're impacting maybe the company they're at. You're impacting everything, and they get the best financial and personal success and well-being, I find, most of the time, and I'm assuming you do too.
Exactly. It's about 2 things, right? I kind of, just like a recent talk I gave at the Legacy Builders Conference, right? So a bunch of centimillionaires, ultra net worth families and family offices. So they wanted me to be on an opening panel about engaging the next generation, because they know that I'm pretty good in fire up the whole room, right? And so I did that, hit a home run as usual. And I got to know Steve Young, who's a former quarterback, superstar quarterback for 49ers, right? We're fellow speakers. He was on the closing fireside chat. I was on the opening fireside chat. And it was fantastic. It's about 2 things, right? Goal achievement, right? What define the most important goals to you? Then prepare super well and achieve the greatest results. Number 1, right? Everyone who's driven, wealthy, non-wealthy families, individuals, we're about goal achievement, right? Number 2, which most almost all consultants don't have my skills to do so. I'm not bragging, but I just have this skill set and understanding that it's just as important for me to lift you up front, to shape you, to hone you, your 4S and 3 EQ, so that your longer term trajectory or arc in success and well-being will be higher than your those without my help, right? What does that mean? You're gonna make a lot more money, you're gonna be more joyful, better peace of mind, more connected, better relationships, more skillful, more mindful, your spirit is better, your mindset is better, your skills are better, your strategy is better, your execution ability is better, your pragmatic, emotional, social leadership intelligence is better. I
Right.
know for a fact, after doing mentoring, one-on-one coaching, speaking, writing, listening, applied research, which means deep learning in topics of interest and apply some of that. That's applied research, right? I spend double-digit number of hours per week. Do the math, right? So every year times 52 weeks in a year, I do a couple hundred hours of applied research every year, right? So I'm very intense. Once I focus on something, I get real intense. And the students and the parents, and sometimes my students are not only high school kids and college kids and next gens. Sometimes they are 50, 40-year-old CEOs who go,
Sure.
here's a check. I'm your student now. Kick my ass, right? Optimize me, maximize me.
Sure.
Because their goals is next level business, career, personal success, right? Per family success. High school kids, college admissions. College kids is about, say, career, first job, activity, stress, anxiety management, internship, shape to have a greater career. And I tend to know how to hone kids where you could rise up faster than your peers, but don't compare with each other. That's unhealthy. That's how the devil wants it. Compare with your best future self, right? That's your competitor right there. And then, don't you want to make a lot more money? Don't you want to be happier? Don't you want to have better relationships? Don't you want to have better joy? Don't you want to raise your longevity, right? And I could talk all day long. There's different categories of topics within that. So I love it. It's so much fun to me.
Well, I think it's really, really important that people get that. It's not just about making money.
Yeah.
You will make money, you will make more money if you I compare a lot of things to sport. The coach that really believes and has a process and a system for his players,
Yes.
those players usually play better than they even thought they were going to play.
You must. Without a great coach, right? Now, the coach, when the coach of a championship team, he's both a group coach and a one-on-one coach, right?
Right,
The
right,
best coaches pull the players aside sometimes because sometimes the
right.
players don't know what they don't know, even though the player's worth already $200 million, right? Sometimes they're so good, but a jar cannot read your own label, right? So the best coaches, you have to have systems, processes, but not fixed mindset. Like I warn people, be careful. Don't have a fixed mindset. Have a growth and contribution mindset. That's part of your soft skills, right? And number one, starts with the spirit, and then your tenacity, your resilience, right? Your adaptability around that, your compassion, and then the soft skills around you, right? The critical thinking is very important, problem solving,
Yeah.
communication, and social and people skills. Those are, but always be curious, lifelong learning. And I'm very unusual. If you spend enough time with me as my student, I literally take the time to not just teach, guide, mentor, and coach. Within that, I literally hone your habits. I could convert some bad habits that you have because my student, they're not going to listen to parents. They're not going to listen to the spouse. They're going to listen to the board. They're not going to, if you're a CEO, you're not going to tell the board everything. Come on. You're not going to tell the staff
Sure.
everything. That's how it works, right? But I'm your third-party trusted chief mentor. Everything's done in secret. Everything done in privately. I know everything about my students, right? So that I could guide them. It is so much fun. So I joke with people. I kind of hone their spirit, mind, and soul, and sometimes even the body, the physiology, because their biochem is all manageable, right? Your fitness, your diet, your sleep, sleep management, emotion management. I do all that, right? And that's part of the 4S and 3Q honing, in addition to helping you prepare well, achieve the greatest results possible. So,
Yeah, it's fascinating because in fact, you mentioned the word soft skills before. We've kind of changed that term to mean high skills, human intelligence skills, because soft skills sometimes are misinterpreted, I found, as fluffy and this and that and whatever. And but they're not. They're the farthest thing from soft skills. They're high skills, human intelligence
right,
skills. And
right.
I think as AI comes along more, those are what you're talking about is even going to be more important. I mean, you know, we talk about this a lot. The fourth industrial revolution is about technology,
Right.
obviously AI, VR, etc. But the fifth is really about how do you combine that with humanity
Right.
and make the impact and talent making the impact. So what's your thoughts on the competitive advantage the present and future leaders who care? And we're doing interviews right now with even 8 to 18-year-olds that I call the present future leaders who care,
Right.
because they're not only future, they're actually doing it in the present. But what's your
Sure.
thoughts on how those leaders can be more effective and use all the skill sets you're talking about, because they're going to be navigating through a totally transformed, very fast world.
Right. Right. The present future you're talking about, I have a small army of them already, right? So I got data points up the boonies in my head and in my files as well, right? And we talked about high skills, soft skills, and all that. Part of that, in addition to what I said already, is really the ability to learn quickly, the ability to learn. And part of what I do with every single student, whether you're a 14-year-old, 15-year-old high school kid, or 55-year-old, depends how much time I have with you. Sometimes it takes a bit more time to transform. Depends on the person.
Yeah.
But I groom into you, instill into you the skill to become a world-class learner, right? So for example, my own kids, a bunch of my students, right? They learn so fast. My Sabrina, as an example, okay, she's a senior software engineer at Google. You know how hard it is in Google? It's like 15 times, 10x, used to be 20 times harder to get into Google than to get into Harvard. The hiring rate is like 0.25%, 1 out of 400 applications, right? You know, so and then she went to a no-name school in college for CS. She hustled. She majored in a business, and then she went to Georgetown, great school for business, great school for politics, right? And she said, oh, Dad, hey, there's an entrepreneurship program in the School of Foreign Service, which is pretty famous, right? I said, hey, that's cool. And then got bit by Silicon Valley and then kind of pivoted. Hey, Dad, you know what? I think I'm very interested in programming. So she pivoted to CS. And Georgetown's got only 2 professors for CS, not 20, like a lot of schools, right? It's a tiny little program, no name. But you know what she did? She's so quick in learning. She hustled. She even beat out graduate student to get a paid internship. One thing led to another. Got lucky as well. Got into the BO program. Got into the internship at Google and got hired. One thing I've done, got promoted faster than most kids her age, and she's only 26, just turned 27. Her into 6 years in Google now, making big bucks, probably in the 0.1%, less than 0.1% at the top of our age bracket. And she learn quickly, correct? Another example, my younger daughter, Lydia, she graduated Wharton, top business school. And she graduated as an activity leader. She was a co-president of the Wharton FinTech Club. But she's not doing FinTech. And she also graduated summa cum laude, top 1%. So I call that a scholar and a jock, right? And she did a bunch of activities as well. Because this girl, she knows how to fire up the whole room. She's my little fireball.
She does.
And tiny little thing here, and then she hits me all the time. We joke around all the time. And I give my alter ego, and she graduated. Guess what she's doing? She's a security software engineer at Slack, Salesforce Slack. Okay, Wharton kids, you graduate, they go to iBanking, right? They go to maybe private equity, maybe management consulting, BCG, Bain, Accenture, or or McKinsey, blah blah blah, right? And she took the road less travel into the technology route. And then she learned so fast, even in an internship at Slack, she said, honey, what did you learn from Penn Wharton that's useful? She said, Dad, guess what? Actually, not as much.
Right.
I learned stuff in the workplace. And I say that she learned super quickly, and both my girls became top performers, like a bunch of my students, right? And they're also inspiring leaders, young leaders. People recognize them, even recognized by C-suite, right? And what I realized, even at G20, B20, here's a good message for all you listeners out there. What employers looking for? And I sit on the future of work, employment, human capital, education, skills task force for the past 10 years, right? Within the G20's Global Business Advisory Council. You can imagine I see a few things, right? What employers look for are your employable skills. Even a lot of Ivy League schools out there, I tell you, it is such a gap in terms of what they're producing.
Yep.
You see all these, what I call highly intellectual woke kids there. They're not my students. if they're my students, I would coach them to migrate away from being entrapped by limiting beliefs. You're being deceived. The world does not work like that. Okay. So you have to be more practical, spiritual, strategic as well, and really kind of produce and contribute and grow and inspire and connect and grow accordingly. And focus on more important things. Focus on, solving real problems out there.
Yeah,
I
and
could,
being, and I think like you said before, and being able to take people with you, basically, because you can't
yeah,
do it all yourself, whatever all is. You've got to, to get people to follow, you don't
it's
just
a
tell them
community.
to follow, they got to want to follow.
Correct. Right.
So I think you may have possibly answered my last question. And, one of the things we say in LA is you got to keep them wanting more so you can do a sequel. So we may
Right.
have to do a sequel, but last question on this part is, with everything that's happened over the last 5 years, from the pandemic to um, you name it, a lot of things going on, the wars and whatnot. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
1 Corinthians 13:13 from the Bible. Okay. Then there's faith, hope, and love. Love is the greatest.
Right.
Part of what I do, and you can kind of detect and feel from even some of my strategic posts on LinkedIn, I kind of embed some love, some embedded some message of a faith in there, even though a lot of people are not in faith. But you look at the latest post I did for Happy Father's Day, it's like, holy crap, a lot of them are CEOs and chairmen, powerful people. They loved it, right? And I want to help inspire people. That's part of raising the longer term arc for well-being and for success. And I am very concerned. AI, to kind of complete responding to your previous question, I guess, it's very exciting, but it's also very concerning. And both Elon, for example, he's very concerned about dark side AI. And I love Elon. He's one of my greatest, besides the big guys up there. But Elon's one of my other, like Tony Robbins and a few other people. Elon's one of my greatest inspirational leaders out there. I love everything he does, especially SpaceX is very important. At the same time, I'm also a little concerned about part of what he does is that implanting chips in people's brains, and then kind of like, kind of make sure. What I'm concerned about is that once human beings are migrating so away from how God created the world, how God created us, be careful. He may not like that, right? And that's something that I watch very, very carefully about. And that's why I want to kind of loop people and ground them, and don't go too off. Otherwise, you're going to be idolizing things that might be regretful in the future. You don't see it now. I see it. It's kind of hard to explain, but people have to opt in to listen. I don't want to kind of shove my faith down the throat. And so, I've been in secular for 58 years until I got deep in faith in the past 4.5 years. The most powerful thing. It makes me to be a better father, better husband, better leader, better mentor, better businessman, better investor, better speaker, better everything. Because those principles in the Bible, nothing is more important than that. And so I'm looking at the devil is so active right now. I'm telling you, okay, distraction is a cousin of deception. And it's like socialism is a cousin of communism. The devil likes to destroy and deceive. Just sit back and observe, directly and indirectly through proxies, macro to micro, global to international to national to local. Observe how the devil is at work. He is ever more intense right now. Okay, I watch it very, very quickly, right? So, it's a very heavy message, and some people don't quite get it. Some people would get repelled by what I say. I don't care, but I'm just here to kind of really get the message out there, and people be careful, be part of a solution if you can.
Yeah, and I think it's brilliant what you're saying. And even if someone's not religious or this, that, or whatever, I'm hopeful that the word love and caring about each other does keep being said by high level people, executives, family offices, and whatnot. It's not like, oh, we can't say love, it's a fluffy word. It's the most important word.
Most important thing. Most
Yeah.
important thing. And for example, there's like DEI, right? I said in the conference, in fact, people loved it, and these are very powerful people. Be careful about the dark side of this wokeness, right? I'm so glad that even in Ivy schools, I send so many kids to Ivy schools, right? but about time that some of these presidents get their asses kicked, right? The wokeism backlash began. We need to surface that because it's getting out of control. And it's moving away from real good-hearted situation. Now, I really revere these top schools. I love them. In fact, they're so generous to a lot of the disadvantaged kids. And all that. I love that, right? There's a lot of things they do that are great. But there are certain things that if it's getting too dark, too powerful, they have all the power. But right now, it's not like that anymore, which is good. Okay. So I think you know, just be loving, pragmatic, and really, as parents, really take care of your children.
Right.
Really ground them. Understand that the K-12 education system is flawed, especially the public. Okay, the higher education system it's flawed. Lot of it's good, but a lot of it's flawed as well.
Mhm.
And be careful about the echo chambers, and be careful about the dark side of social media, the algorithms and
Well, the Surgeon General just put out, and then we'll
and
put
mass
in.
media, right?
Yeah, he
Because
just put out that he,
these are inputs into your mindset, into your soul. So you have to understand, step back, and realize all the inputs that filter you, that kind of shaped your character. What can you do to improve your character? Some of our habits and choices, you see, but it's all doable.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm very big on that. So
Well, there's a reason we call this Leaders Who Care.
right.
If you start with the premise of that you do care about other people, then
Yeah.
that's the beginning. Hey, thanks for sharing all that.
You bet. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.